Separation is the root of all our problems. Whoa. If I hurt you, then I hurt myself. Hate you, then I hate myself. If I kill you, I kill me.
You're tuned to Family Radio, broadcasting from Kingston, Jamaica, where Love 101 FM, and the time is now 5:30 p.m. Welcome to Family Time.
Good evening and welcome to everyone on Love 101 FM, Facebook and YouTube Live. This is Family Time. Family Time is about your issues and your relationships, your at-home family, your community family, and your global family. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, and our aim is to enable healthy families, which will lead to healthy nations. So stay with us and please connect with us via all our platforms. Follow us on Facebook at FLM-Family Life Ministries or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries-FLMJA. And on Instagram, keep up with what we're doing at simply FLMJA. And on Instagram, of course, we need you to follow us and like all the things you see there. While Family Time is a family program, we'd like to caution that it may, on odd occasions, touch on what some may consider mature subject matters. Your discretion is advised. I'm Crystal. Now, we're going to talk about depression today, and it is estimated that more than 100 million people in the world battle depression. Most of us face this battle at least once in our lives. I don't know how many of the 100 are actually Christians, but yes, we are in that number. Now, how do Christians become depressed? That's the big question, because Jesus is our joy. We're not talking about being very sad or unhappy. Depression is an actual clinical diagnosis. It's a real mental issue. All right. And when those dark clouds begin to take us over, how do we rise above them? Is there a formula? Well, that's what we're going to talk about this evening under the topic Rising Above Depression. And while that's going on, we'd love for you to share your response to this question. How did God lead you out of your depression? Right? How did God lead you out of your depression? Now send it via WhatsApp and voice notes. Make sure the voice notes are no longer than 30 seconds to this number, 876-997-3125, or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 8 to participate. You can also watch us and comment live on the Love 101 Facebook and YouTube platforms. We'll be right back with our special guest, Pastor Che Cohen. So go nowhere. This is Family Time.
Let's face it, we all pray for forgiveness. We all want it. But how willing and prepared are we to return the favor? Forgive those who trespass against us, like it says in the Lord's Prayer. But what does it really mean to forgive? And is forgetting a non-negotiable part of the equation? Are we forgetting to forget? Tuesday, July 2, on The Rock, join guests Bishop Valentine Rodney and Bishop Carl Wisdom as they discuss the topic, Forgive and Forget. That's The Rock, Tuesday, July 2 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Yes, yes, listeners, welcome back to Family Time on Love 101 and welcome to Pastor Che Koan. Pastor Che has been a pastor in the US of A for about 14 years. At present, he's the senior pastor of Life Church in California. Before leaving Jamaica, his wife Samantha and himself launched and led a church in Ocho Rios. He's been married for 28 years and has three children. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Crystal. This is
Awesome.
amazing. I'm so glad we could connect.
Excellent. And we are very excited to hear what you're going to share on the topic, Pastor. Now, our
Yes.
hearts get depressed because of a number of things. Some of
Mhm.
us may feel like we've been depressed all our lives and with
Mhm.
no reason that we can figure out or explain. Others,
Mhm.
depression could have been sparked by any kind of life changing experience, such as the loss of a job, divorce, relationship issues, sickness, or even the loss of a loved one. How
Yeah.
or why you are depressed may be important to overcoming the process. But right now, all you know is that you feel like you're depressed and it's no fun. So we want to say to our listeners, we want to encourage our listeners actually. We want you to share. Tell us how you rose above depression as we unpack the topic, rising above depression. Now, from the biblical standpoint, um, there are very well, I wouldn't say few, but quite a number of biblical figures went through depression. We think about Jeremiah when he uh, rebuked Jezebel and the prophets of Baal. So we know it's not unique to those who are in Christendom. But then my question to you, and hope you haven't forgotten, listeners, how again did you overcome depression? How did God lead you out of that? Now we're going to unpack it. We're going to unpack it, Pastor Cohen. I see you're ready and excited, but of course, we want to keep our listeners engaged.
Whenever you're
And
ready, girl.
you listeners, yes, to send your voice notes to tell us how did God lead you out of your depression. And the voice notes should be no longer than 30 seconds. Send it to this number 876-997-3125, and you can watch us live. We're live on the Love 101 Facebook and YouTube platforms presently, or call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. Well, the time is going and we need to begin unpacking the topic. So, Pastor Cohen, what is depression?
Oh man, that's a really, really, really good question. I'll say this, like people struggle with depression. There's all kinds of ways in which people what would I say? Communicate what depression feels like. Um,
Yes.
I heard one person say that it feels like you're in quicksand, sinking, and watching the world go on quite well without you, and no one is
Mm,
coming to your aid. Some people feel, I've heard one person say, it just feels like you're in a cave where you feel disoriented and you can't seem to find your way out. And as we talk about depression today, I'm not talking about the clinical biological side of depression, which is very, very real. Um, I have some experience with that in that my own I have one of my children who went through severe depression, severe anxiety and depression, and is on medication for it even now, and just going through 3 or 4 years of the intensity of that with that in our family. So I'm very well, how is it, sympathetic towards the clinical side and when there's chemical imbalances and things happening in somebody's body. But I think sometimes if we give biology the entire narrative around depression, then what we do is we remove the power that we have as individuals to address it. And we also minimize what God's word says to us about it, because our only solution then becomes a pill, it becomes some kind of chemical. And there is so much. In fact, of the 9 reasons found that research has found for depression, only 2 of them are really biological. The other 7 are really lifestyle choices. There are different things that happen in our lives that put us in a position of being in depression.
Yes. So one of the things I'm observing here, Pastor Cohen, is that there is no set uh, definition for depression, but more you've provided explanations of the feeling of depression.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
so depression is very unique then to the individual. May I say? Very
it
unique.
is. I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously there is a loss of motivation. There is a sense of feeling despair. There are feelings of as if there is no hope, and so those feelings come along with depression. There is the sometimes people are depressed and don't even realize it. They just don't want to get up out of bed. They don't have any sense of purpose. They don't have any sense of drive to do anything. They want to be alone all the time. They want to stay in a dark place. There's some symptoms that we find, but those feelings is this almost this loss of hope, this loss of drive and motivation and desire to get anything done, to push on. Some people do things just out of necessity, but as soon as there's a break, they just disconnect from all things social, from all things productive. They're just doing it to survive. So people who are going through depression, there are those things that are very, what was it, very similar among the very many cases of depression, that the feeling of overwhelm to the point of just not wanting to go on. And sometimes that leads to suicidal thoughts as a result.
Yes.
It leads to the kind of despair that says,
Yes.
I just want to get out of here. So
So it's a sense of deep hopelessness.
absolutely.
Yes. So how do we differentiate a bad day or a bad week from being depressed? Can someone be depressed for a short time? Can somebody go through depression in a day and then tomorrow they're well? Is there any
Yeah,
such condition to depression?
absolutely. I mean, I remember one time I was in college, and we were it was a weekend where everyone had left for the weekend, and I was by myself. And I remember that weekend, as I was on the campus, I just felt this deep sense of loneliness had just overcome me. Just a real sense of being so alone and being so isolated. I started to
Yes.
pray and I didn't even feel like God was near me. I felt like God was distant in that moment. And I remember walking around just trying to get myself out of this thing. And it just felt like this cloud, this blanket over my life. Oh, and I just could not shake it until I think it was the next day that when I got up, I felt different and felt better. So there are bouts of depression that you can have, but there are seasons of depression you can have. And of course, there is just living in depression. And when people talk about burnout, that's really what they're talking about is working themselves to a place where they're not at a place of depression where they no longer have anything to give. And that's what it feels like. So yeah, you can have moments, you can have seasons, and you can have prolonged seasons.
Yes.
And some of them, once again, some of them are biological, and you need
Yes.
to see not just a therapist, but in that case, not a therapist can't help you when it's biological. You really need to see a psychiatrist. So the therapist will do that. But in most cases, why you go to a therapist first, because most cases are not chemical.
Okay. All right. So we're coming up on our break pretty soon, but just let me ask you this. What can children be depressed? In the Jamaican culture, when children seem to worry a lot, you say, what you worrying about? What is on your mind? You're not paying any bills, you're not working. Can children be depressed? Teenagers be
Absolutely.
depressed?
Absolutely. Children, and especially in our culture now, meaning the whole modern day. Because look, I tell my kids this. When I was growing up, when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, the only time I compared myself to anybody who looked perfect when I walked into a store, maybe I go John R. Wong or I go one of these places and there's a magazine that says Men's Health or says something and I picked up and I go, boy, I wish I did look like that. And I start to do a comparison thing. No, they live with comparison on their phone. Every single day and every moment, they are comparing themselves to somebody else who is living in their eyes a lifestyle that looks better than them. And comparison is one of the major issues that lead to depression. It is this constant.
I want you to hold that point. Comparison is a major thing that leads to depression. One of, actually. So listeners, you've been listening to Family Time. I want to remind you to share with us how God led you out of depression, and you can send your responses via voice messages to this number, no longer than 30 seconds, rather, to 876-997-3125. And you can watch us live on the Love 101 YouTube channel and on the Facebook platform. Also, you can call the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. This is Family Time. We're going to a break. We'll be right back.
For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, what we say? Grace Mackerel are the winner. For the richest sauce, always the saucy. Grace Mackerel are the winner. And if you talk about taste, don't know say we win the race. From the cooking stuff, them a kind of food we love. And what we say? Grace Mackerel are the winner. Real value for sure. The one and only Grace Mackerel. Always give me more. The taste and mold you. Grace bring you the food you love.
Every Thursday morning, Love 101 shares with you power-packed messages, words of encouragement, and testimonies of God's miraculous power. You get all of that in the Don't Give Up broadcast, brought to you by Celebration Church at the Portmore Skating Rink in the Portmore Mall with Pastor Prophet Michael Carter. Be sure to stay tuned to Love 101 for the Don't Give Up broadcast. Get the word you need to start your day right. The Don't Give Up broadcast, Thursdays at 5:15 a.m. It's on the family station, Love 101.
As a man living with HIV, a regular day for me, not much different from yours. I have to wake up and go to people and work in the traffic, but then when we reach, we can run some joke with my co-worker them. Sometimes we link up after work, or play ball, or just dip on my ends and kick back before we go home. You see how much we have in common? People living with HIV are a part of our community. Make a par. Protect, accept, and respect. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Enjoy yummy for the summertime. Win big for the back to school. It's the Yummy Summer Back to School promotion. Purchase one each of these yummy products: yummy cheese bread, cornbread, jamboree, and 5-ounce buns. Write your name, address, and contact number on the back of your receipt and mail with the empty packages. Send in with your Yummy salesman or drop off at your nearest Yummy agency or entry box in participating supermarkets. Enter today and win your share of over 1.4 million in cash and prizes. Win big for the back to school. Follow us at Yummy Bakery JA for more details. Authorized under Section 58 of the Betting, Gaming, and Lotteries Act.
Yes, so welcome back to a discussion on rising above depression. How did you overcome depression? How did God lead you out of depression? We want to hear from you. So remember, we need you to send in your voice notes and your WhatsApp messages. Now, some of us, again, we might have lost a loved one. Death happened. We got fired, or the pain just won't go away. Sadness sets in, and all of a sudden, we realize that we can't remember when last we felt happy. Now we're in a state of depression. Nothing is normal. There is hopelessness. Was it our fault? Was it my fault? What did we do or did not do to reach there? So we're having this discussion with Pastor Che Cohen, and we're
Hey.
unpacking rising above depression. So before we went to the break, Pastor Cohen, you were talking about comparison. And one of the questions we want to ask in this segment is it our fault when we become depressed? Sometimes we tend to
Sorry,
be
go
very
ahead.
harsh on each
Yeah.
other to say, why you putting that on your head? Why are you stressing out yourself? Is it our fault? Even so with the comparison and so on.
I don't think so. It's not about a fault. It's sometimes the circumstances and again culture that we're in. I think you have to be very deliberate in how you address certain things in life. You know, Paul said, "Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind."
Yes.
Transforming, being transformed is something that you have to make some deliberate effort to do. Being conformed, you just have to go with the flow. You just have to go with the flow. So if you are not being deliberate about certain things, then the culture simply molds you into the shape that it wants you. And comparison is one of those things. There's an old a quote by one of the US presidents that says, comparison is the thief of joy. And it's the idea is that you are happy with what you have until you see somebody have something else different.
Yeah.
And sometimes what happens to us when it comes to depression, how comparison plays into depression, is that once we are open to this sense of comparison, constant comparison with others, then we never feel adequate enough. We never feel that we're smart enough, strong enough, rich enough, whatever it is. There's always a less than feeling because everyone always puts their best foot forward, right? Everyone shows you their highlight reels on Instagram, on Facebook, while we're
Yes.
comparing their highlights with our bloopers,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We're looking at all the great in their life and we're highlighting all the negatives in our life. And so we feel so far off that it can make us feel like we're just not good enough. And the thing
Yes.
is that kids grew up in that culture. That's the culture that they live in. This is not like, unless there is some deliberate fight against it, they just flow into it. So it's easy for them. They're more susceptible to depression than some of us adults who didn't live on social media our entire lives.
So comparison is one thing, but what are some
Yeah.
steps that people take to get to that point? So no, you said it's not our fault really because life happens really. You can't control some of the tragic things that will happen,
Sure.
and we're just human beings. But what are some of the things that we do to even plunge ourselves
Right.
deeper into darkness?
Well, let me tell you this. I find that there are 6 things that lead us to depression. And one of the things that I was very excited about when I read the story of Elijah, and if you look throughout the Bible, let me just say this, because as Christians, I think sometimes we feel if we're not spiritual enough, then that's why we're depressed. That people
Yes.
who are more spiritual never get into depression, never kind of face that. The truth is, depression hits so many men and women of God. People, pastors struggle with depression all the time. We talk about church hurt as if church hurt is something that's just for the congregation. Pastors live with church hurt all the time, with all kinds of betrayal, with all kinds of people who they thought would stick with them forever walking out. All kinds of things happen. And so the idea that this is only for the depression is only for the less spiritual among us is a lie. Is that, first of all, let's just kill that lie right there. Let's just stamp it out. The Bible says this. James was talking about Elijah and how powerful his prayers were. And he said Elijah was a man just like us. And when we
Yes.
look at the story of Elijah, Elijah went through the kind of depression where Elijah said to the Lord, Lord, I wish you would kill me right now. That's how depressed I feel. I feel so bad. I wish you would kill me right now. And so there are 6 things that Elijah went through, and I think it kind of is just like us. One of them is comparison, like we said, because one of the things that Elijah said was, he started comparing himself to his forefathers and woe is me, and I'm just not as good as all this kind of stuff. But here's the other thing that he also did. Elijah also went through isolation. One of the first things Elijah did is he ran from Jezebel when she threatened him, and he left his servant and went all the way by himself. So one of the big things that causes depression is isolation. And for those of us who are parents with young kids, when we went through COVID, one of the things that we probably saw is our kids walk through some of the depression that came with isolated from their friends, from family members, from others. This idea of social distancing and just not being able to communicate or connect with other people physically created isolation, which led many of them to depression. So a lot of our kids experience depression much earlier than we would ever have because of isolation. Another thing that we saw in Elijah's life is that Elijah ran for 30 days straight. Ran. I don't even know if Usain can do that. I mean, like 30 days straight. No, this is crazy. Wow. So he ran for 30 days straight and just went on and on and on until he came to this mountain, to this cave. And so, second thing, we have isolation, but we also have imbalance. There's sometimes an imbalance in our lives that we can just kind of work, just keep working. And we're trying to push through, but pushing through may actually be pulling you apart.
Yes.
A lot of times, this is what we don't realize. Just because we can do it doesn't mean it's sustainable. And so this is what burnout is all about. Burnout is doing something that is just unsustainable and you just keep going. Eventually, your body catches up with your emotions.
Yes.
When you go to the doctor, they check with you and they check in your heart. And so the first thing they ask you is, hey, are you under any stress? And why would they ask if you're under any stress when they're trying to check you out physically? Because they know that your emotions impact your body. Your body impacts your emotions. So if you just keep going and going and going and going and going, eventually your emotions themselves are going to burn out. So that's the imbalance. The other one, the fourth one, so we talk about comparison, talk about isolation and imbalance. The fourth one is rumination. And rumination is just that thing of grabbing on, meditating. How I describe rumination is this: you meditate on what distresses you until it depresses you.
Wow.
That's rumination.
Yes.
You meditate on what distresses you until it depresses you.
So can we say this is like for persons who overthink sometimes?
Absolutely. It is about overthinking and getting stuck in that rut, right?
Yes.
Rumination comes from that same Greek word that means meditate, and that means when cows chew and then they regurgitate and then they chew it again and they regurgitate. Exactly.
And some of us actually think that's good. Some of us actually think that's good because we're looking at every angle. But I want us to keep that point. I want us to keep that point.
You know what, Crystal? It tastes bitter every time you chew it. It tastes more bitter every time you chew it.
All right.
Go ahead.
Hold that point for me, Pastor Cohen. This is Family Time live on Love 101, YouTube and on Facebook. It's produced by Family Life Ministries for our social media interaction. We're looking forward to you. How to share with us. How did God lead you out of your depression? We want you to share. Let us know via WhatsApp, voice notes, no longer than 30 seconds, and send that to 876-997-3125. Or you can send it via the Love 101 Facebook page, and we are also live on the Love 101 YouTube channel. Or you can call in via the studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 8 to participate. We want to hear from you. This evening, we've been unpacking the topic, rising above depression. It's break time, but just before, let's get a word from Reverend Mike in this episode of WTF, Word to Flesh Moments with Reverend Mike. Don't go anywhere.
Are you feeling depressed right now? Don't worry, you're in good company. Bible greats such as Moses, Job, Elijah, David, and Jonah showed signs of depression, even though they seem to have been mighty people of God. A musician in the Bible even wrote a song, a part of which said, "Why are you cast down, O my soul, And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. In Proverbs 12:25, we are told, anxiety in the heart of a man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad. So the Bible speaks to the problem of depression and provides a prescription for the problem. Number one, place your hope in God. In the Bible, hope in God is not a mystical thing. It was rooted in the fact that God had done something miraculous in the past, and therefore that gave the right to hope that he will do it again in the present. Number two, place yourself in the company of people who will give you a good word when you're depressed. Number three, identify the cause of your depression and implement strategies to get rid of the cause. Then number four, deliberately place and replace the cause of your depression before God and embrace the joy of the Lord. Another Bible writer observed, the joy of the Lord is my strength. I'm Reverend Mike from Fellowship Tabernacle, and we just had a WTF moment.
Love 101 invites you to set your day before it begins with midnight prayer and praise, Mondays at midnight. It's the third prayer watch, a period of much spiritual activity. You will be strengthened during this time of prayer and praise. Midnight prayer and praise is during the third watch of the night, the time to strengthen yourself spiritually and seek direction. Time to command your day. Midnight prayer and praise, Mondays at midnight through to 3 a.m. early Tuesday morning. 3 hours to set your day with prayers offered in each hour. Midnight prayer and praise is on the family station, Love 101.
Joan is living with HIV and she has the full support of her community.
Oh, John, one of my favorite passenger them. Nah, left fire road.
Me love Joan. She sell the best box food on the block. You know, say Joan are the first year me ever do. I'm nah left her out.
My mom is the best. Anything she wants, I'm there for her.
Just like Joan, people living with HIV are a part of our community. Make we par, protect, accept, and respect. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Need auto insurance? Advantage General puts you in the driver's seat. Apply online, purchase online, renew online, submit a claim online. Coverage in no time. Request a quote, purchase insurance, submit claims, even pay renewals with Advantage General online. From zero coverage to insured in 10 minutes. Advantage General, a member of Sagicor Group Jamaica. Conditions apply.
You know what's sweet? The new pack Sweet Living promotion. Win great prizes.
Bedroom set, living room set, or kitchen appliance set, plus TVs and monthly cash prizes.
Send in 5 new pack labels or a receipt. Labels must belong to at least the new pack canned beans, coconut milk powder, and new pack oil categories. Fill out the tagline. New pack, more than just value. Place your entry in one of the drop boxes at participating outlets. Enter by mail or online at newpackjamaica.com.
Time to live sweet.
Enter the new pack Sweet Living promotion, June 16th to August 31. See the press for more details. Authorized under Section 58.3 of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act.
Protect what matters most. Obey the speed limit. Speeding is the leading cause of road accidents and death. The time by Advantage General Insurance Company is.
Welcome back. The time is now 6:04 p.m. You are tuned to Love 101. This is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries. FLM provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Our discussion this evening is rising above depression, and we have unpacking this topic Pastor Che Cohen, all the way from the US of A, giving us some nuggets as we unpack the topic. So we were talking about rumination and how Overthinking and meditating on negative things, Pastor, can take us or keep us in a dark place. You may
Yes.
continue.
Yes. So we went for there are two more. We talked about comparison, we talked about isolation, talked about
Yes.
imbalance, and of course rumination. The fifth one is the one that you've been talking, kind of intuiting at the whole time, and is this an inability to process pain. The
Yes.
inability to process pain. A lot of times, like you said, you lose a loved one, you lose a job, you have a divorce, some loss takes place, some painful event takes place, and the inability to process that pain can throw you into a place of depression. And this is why sometimes too, this one is the kind of the common one, or the one that people most associate with depression. That's why they said to the kids, what you have to worry about, because they feel like they haven't gone through enough pain in their life to really understand that. But all of those things we've talked about are just as valid as processing pain. And sometimes when we go through hard times, one of the things that we don't hold on to is this idea that all things work together for good. That there is always some kind of purpose in our pain, even if we don't see it in the moment. And so the inability to process pain then creates a situation where we feel we can't go on because we could not control the outcomes of what we were hoping. We couldn't keep the marriage together. We couldn't keep the person alive, our prayers. We couldn't keep the person, the child from running away. We did all that we could do and we could not control the outcomes. And oftentimes when we can't control the outcomes, it creates pain in our lives.
Yes. Which leads me to this question. How does God lead us out of those dark moments in our lives? Where does God come in? You mentioned purpose in the pain, right? And sometimes it's hard to encourage persons when they're going through something. For example, when people lose a loved one, we encourage them and say, God knows best. It's okay. And you're like, the other person on the receiving end of those words are like, how could God know best? And I love my mother. I loved my husband. I loved my sister, and they meant the world to me. What you mean? But how does God take us through these moments, which are inevitable?
I think one of the ways that he does that is through people. Sometimes let me say it this way. As people, we can be very well-meaning when we tell people, hush, don't worry, all things work together for good. God is working, and we can be very well-meaning with that. And oftentimes, we need to just be there for people. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane was going through one of the hardest times in his life. He said, my soul he said his soul felt like it was unto death, like he was dying inside. That's how he felt. The Bible says that he was sweating, almost like drops of blood was coming from him. He was in such distress. But he had Peter, James, and John with him. And you know what? These guys couldn't counsel him. These guys couldn't give him a word that was better than the word himself. There is nothing that they could do for him in terms of saying, come on, Jesus, you get over it. Come on, man, you can do it. All he wanted for them to do was be there. And sometimes we just need the body of Christ, people around us, to just be there. What he said to them, could you just not tarry with me for 1 hour? Couldn't you just tarry with me? Just stay with me. Sometimes we just need somebody to be so that we can express and talk and get everything out, so we can be a part of the processing of pain. We want to, as well-meaning as we want to sometimes short-circuit people's processing of pain. Sometimes short-circuit expressing of their pain. We don't want them to say too much. We want to shut them off because we can't deal with sometimes the emotions that come out of it. We need to allow people to go through the process of pain, because there are some things that we cannot get outside of pain. There's some places, there's some treasures in our suffering and in our pain we cannot get in the light. Some of the things that God has for us in the darkness.
Wow.
And so I think
that's very deep. Repeat that,
You
Pastor
want me to say it
Cole.
again? There's
Yes.
some things we cannot get in the light that God has for us in the darkness. And there's
And
just
that
some
sounds,
things.
and yes, and that sounds contradictory, but it is
I
true
know it does.
that the Lord
It
even
does.
you learn through pain.
Absolutely. I mean, Paul says that I may know him and his suffering. Why would
Yes.
Paul ask things like that? To know Christ and to know his suffering? Because there are some things you get in the darkness, some things you get in the suffering, some things you get in the pain. You can't
Yes.
get on the mountaintop. You can't get in the joy. You know, it's when you walk through the valley of the shadow of death that you sense his presence and his comfort with you. So you have to allow people to process and to fully walk through it and to know that God will walk you through it. Don't try and short circuit it. There's some things there you cannot get outside of there.
Yes. And I want to ask you this question as well. You may have persons who would like to say, you know, 2 3 years have passed. How is it that you've not yet gotten over this thing? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
so we're saying that you've been repeating that we should allow people to go through their process, however long that process is.
absolutely.
But how long is too long? And at
Yeah.
what point do you recommend therapy and
No,
counseling?
well, I recommend. I have no problem with therapy. I don't have any problem with therapy from day one. I really don't have any problem with therapy from day one. So I don't think therapy is something that you do because, oh no, it seems too long now. I
Yeah.
think therapy is something that helps you to walk through the process of pain, and
Yeah.
it helps you to do it in a healthy way. I think the difference between therapy and just doing it by yourself is that when you're by yourself, it's unguided. So you're basically just trying to figure it out as you go along. I think therapy helps to guide you along a path to help you to process the pain in a way that is healthy and helpful in the long term. And so I don't have any problem with therapy up front from day one. None at all.
Excellent. So, listeners, you're hearing this. Therapy is okay. And I don't want anyone to think that therapy is extremely expensive. You know, you watch the movies and you see wealthy people and people in corporate jobs going to therapy to soothe their stress and their minds. But FLM offers this service. So if anyone is listening out there and you're going through depression and need counseling, please do remember that FLM offers these services and we'll be sharing the contact details with you. Now we're heading into our final break. This is Family Time live on Love 101 FM, YouTube and Facebook. It's produced by Family Life Ministries. For our social media interaction, we want you to continue to listen in and share your thoughts, but we want to hear from you as well. How did God lead you out of your depression? Let us know via WhatsApp and voice notes. The voice notes no longer than 30 seconds, quick and easy. Share it to 876-997-3125, or you may share on the Love 101 Facebook page, and we are live presently on the Love 101 YouTube channel. You can send in your answer or your experience to the studio lines by calling 876-968-8327 or 8 to participate. We want to hear from you. Don't go anywhere. We're now upon the break.
Here's why you can't afford to miss the Morning Watch.
I love listening to the Morning Watch because topics are discussed and issues are highlighted that are of major importance, which in turn edify me.
The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
I like listening to the Morning Watch. I find it very informative. I find it very interesting. The topics that are covered are very, very wide.
The Morning Watch, thought-provoking, insightful, current. Listen for the probing questions with attorney at law Stokely Marshall and the in-depth discussion with Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint. The Morning Watch, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The Morning Watch is on the family station Love 101.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations.
Recommendations on what?
On how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jm.
We are on the road to republic.
Enjoy yummy for the summertime. Win big for the back to school. It's the Yummy Summer Back to School promotion. Purchase one each of these yummy products. Yummy cheese bread, cornbread, jamboree, and 5-ounce buns. Write your name, address, and contact number on the back of your receipt and mail with the empty packages. Send in with your Yummy salesman or drop off at your nearest Yummy agency or entry box in participating supermarkets. Enter today and win your share of over 1.4 million in cash and prizes. Win big for the back to school. Follow us at Yummy Bakery JA for more details. Authorized under Section 58 of the Betting, Gaming, and Lotteries Act.
Need to beat the heat this summer? Come to Fosridge for your ceiling fans at prices as low as $15,000. Their sleek and stylish 52-inch fan blades are designed to fit and complement your interior decor. Call them now at 876-937-5099 or visit any of their locations in Kingston, Mandeville, Montego Bay, and their newest location, Draxall. Beat the heat this summer at Fosridge with their Madison ceiling fans. Prices as low as $15,000. Open Sundays.
Welcome back. Welcome back. You've been listening to Family Time. The time is now 6:16. You're tuned to Love 101. This is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries. FLM provides counseling for people with all kinds of challenges from all walks of life. Remember, you can tune into the program via the Love 101 Facebook page and YouTube channel. The topic today, we've been unpacking with Pastor Chekawan, rising above depression. All right, so we are now going into the closing segments of our discussion, Pastor Kawan. And we want to just recap some very important things that you've said and continue to unpack it as best we can. So you spoke about comparison. Comparison is one of the culprits. Isolation is one of the culprits as well. Imbalance, burnout, that is, rumination, inability to process pain.
Yes.
Inability to process pain.
And you know what? As you, we have one more that we want to talk about. As you spoke about getting help, you know, therapy, counseling, I want to say one thing about that and then we move on to the next one. And it's this: getting help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom.
Yes.
Getting help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. So for those of you out there who are looking at getting help and thinking, man, I don't want people to think that I just can't handle it. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Yes. I think every pastor should have a counselor. I just think every person who walks in ministry and walks in the weight of ministry should have a therapist. Just believe, because it carries a lot of weight. So if they need it, then all of us need it. So let me move on. The sixth one is spiritual warfare. And I say that because I don't want us to put aside the spiritual side of this. We have a real enemy who can distract us. And sometimes what he does is suggest things to us that will cause us to feel like our life is over or there's no future because of some kind of suggestion that the enemy throws. He can distract us and discourage us, and then we walk out that depression. So we need to also recognize that in order to deal with that, then we have some solutions. And I want to talk about the solutions, seeing that this is our last segment. Yes. And I want to get into it. But just once again, from the life of Elijah, the first thing I would say is restore your health. Restore your health. The first thing that God did was not give Elijah a word, was not give Elijah a spiritual, pep talk. The first thing God did with Elijah when he was feeling depressed was he told him to eat some food and drink some drink and go sleep. And sometimes part of the issue with us is we can't even get the spiritual help we need because physically we're not ready for it. Physically, we're so depleted that even when we read our Bible, we're not getting anything. When we're praying, we feel like we're not even feeling anything. And sometimes the most spiritual thing we can do for ourselves is take a nap, is go on vacation. In fact, I'll say this, your co-workers may be happy if you tell them that you're going on vacation because they're feeling the wrath of your depression too.
Yes, yes. You know, so funny that you're mentioning this. I was at a leadership breakfast last weekend, and this is what one of the main speakers said: taking a nap, coming aside. You have to come aside and replenish your own soul. And I'm so happy that you, as a man of God, as a leader yourself, you're pointing out, you're letting people know that, listen, my man, people in these positions do go through things, because often people think that because you're a pastor or because you're a youth leader or so, or you know the Bible cover to cover, or you're anointed and you can sing and you can deliver people, that you don't go through these ordinary things because you have Jesus in your top pocket. So how could you be sad? You know,
exactly.
But this is a real thing, as you are pointing out, as you know, pointing to Elijah's story, which is a real spiritual reference.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, that this man,
you know what?
slaughtered people.
He was going this whole time in a running without any food, without eating. And sometimes our response when we get very spiritual about this, and listen, I don't have no problem with being spiritual because spiritual warfare is a part of this. But we have to be careful that we don't start going into seasons of fasting in order to get ourselves out of depression when our body needs some restoration. So we have to really watch it and say, okay, what do I really need to restore myself physically so that I can receive what God has for me spiritually?
Yes. So this means that the enemy sometimes guilt trip people into not spiritual enough. And so we deplete ourselves fasting when we shouldn't be fasting when we should be eating and sleeping.
Absolutely.
and giving thanks for the sun and the grass.
Exactly. And that's what the angel gave Elijah the food and actually fed him 2 times and then said, now you can run on with the food that is in your body. But he just could not go any further because of how depleted he is. The second thing that did was show up. I don't know. So this is a kind of a famous scripture where Elijah was in the cave and the Lord said to him, Elijah, what are you doing here? And then Elijah went through all kinds of complaints. And then he said, come to the mountain, stand outside. And then there was this earthquake. And there was this fire, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. The Lord was not in the wind that was tearing the mountain apart. And the Lord was not in the fire, right? By the way, that's the first mention of earth, wind, and fire. I just thought I'd let you know. So earthquake, wind, and fire was happening. And the Lord showed up in a gentle whisper. And so here's the thing. The second thing is to encounter God. So restore your body, but then encounter God. And the secret to this intimacy, if you notice, what God did was he had a whisper. And so for you to hear the whisper of somebody, you have to be close to them.
Yes.
Which speaks to intimacy, that God was calling Elijah to a place of intimacy. So here's what I want to tell you. The secret to intimacy is worship.
Yes.
Worship.
Yes.
And so here it is, you restore your body, but spend some time in worship. Like one of the things that I have is I have a worship playlist that is for any time I get discouraged. I just have some songs, some select songs that just remind me who God is and remind me what he's called me to. So that when those moments come where I feel like, man, why am I doing this? Man, I have a playlist that is going to encourage my soul. I'm going to spend time in worshiping God. Because in those moments, I can remind myself, what did the Lord say to me?
Amen.
What did God call me to? And that's important. The third thing is to shift your narrative. Shift your narrative. So you want to restore your health, you want to encounter God, and then you want to shift your narrative. right? So what happened was that Elijah covered his face when he heard the voice of the Lord. And your face is your identity. And what happened is that Elijah had an identity about himself that had gone wrong. He had started feeling, man, look, I am what I did. I am what they said. I'm not good enough.
Yes.
And what he had to do was shift his identity to what God said about him. I'm forgiven. I'm called. I am who God says I am. I'm the righteous. Right? I am more than a conqueror. Sometimes you have to just write out a list of things that God says you are and remind yourself of who he says you are. Shift your narrative to what everyone says about you or what you're saying about you to what God says about you. What are you telling yourself? Because what you tell yourself is more important than what anybody else said. And so you have to line up your thinking and what you say to yourself about yourself with what God says. I'll give you two more because I know we don't have much time. And here we go. The fourth one is embrace your purpose, right? God didn't even address Elijah's problem. He didn't even say to him, boy, Elijah, I'm so sorry you're feeling that way. Oh my God. You know what God said? God said, Elijah, I have an assignment for you. I need you to go and anoint Elisha. I need you to anoint Elisha. Not even Elijah, I understand how you feel. No, avenue. And here's the reason why I believe. Because oftentimes when we don't have a sense of purpose, depression seeps in. And the moment God gives us purpose, the moment the Lord gives us an assignment, the moment the Lord says, this is why I called you for, there's something that fills us up again and reminds us that I have a purpose for living. I have a purpose on this earth. And the last one is treasure your connections. And treasure your connections, all this means is that Elijah and Elisha walked together for the rest of Elijah's life. And Elisha refused to leave Elisha's side. You need to treasure the people God has put in your life because those people are what is going to help you to maintain the joy of the Lord. It's not just God that helps you. It's those connections and the relationships that God has designed and given to you to help you to stay above water. Man?
Wow.
So,
You have given us.
Short
yes,
time. I hope
I was about to say you have given us a bag of things. And honestly, I just trust that the listeners will be able to use these tools that you've shared with us. Restore your health, encounter God through worship, intimacy, and shift your narrative. You are who God says you are. And those are some of the tools that you use to war against the enemy when you are coming under attack in depression. Listeners, this is family time. Thanks for being here with us. If you have questions of a personal nature or are concerned about a friend, family member, call us. For more information on our services or for our counselors in Kingston and other parts of the island, contact our head office at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. Note that for appointments and information on costs, you must call the office. Otherwise, to keep up to date with what's happening with FLM and our programs, check out our Facebook page. Our new Facebook page is FLM-Family Life Ministries. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLMJA, and on Instagram at simply FLMJA. And don't forget to tell us what you'd like us to talk about on future programs. Now, before we leave you, here is this evening's Bible verse, and it's taken from Hebrews 6, verse 19. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. Of course, that is the hope of our salvation in Jesus Christ. Join us again next week for another informative program. Thanks again to our special guest, Pastor Chet Cohen, talking with us out of the USA. We thank you so very much for sharing all that you did with us. Thanks also to our show producer, Kathy Gale, studio facilitator, Timoy Butler, and of course, from yours truly, thank you so much for joining in. This has been Family Time.